I really like to study things like this. I like to study I don't know if this is the right word, pragmalinguistics. One of my friends told me about that word, and he doesn't even speak English as his first language. He's from Peru. He told me about pragmalinguistics, and I was like, dang, that's a big word for you to know. But I had never even heard of that word before, and it turns out, when I looked it up, yeah, I'm obsessed with pragmalinguistics already, before I even knew the word. And it's not because I study any books on it, because then I would know the word. I've never studied any pragmalinguistics, but I have studied people in a pragmalinguistic manner. I've understood pragmalinguistics for my entire life, I think. It really took off, though, when I started smoking weed, which was about 3 years ago. But that's a different story entirely. I don't want to get too deep into my drug phase. I still smoke weed every once in a while now, but I went through a major phase of drug usage. It wasn't addiction. It was psychedelics and lots of weed. And I did Molly a couple times, but I didn't like it that much. My favorite drug is DMT, for sure. But I'm not going to go too deep into that subject right now. I'm talking about gender. See, it's all connected. It's very bizarre how it's all connected somehow, gender and psychedelics. But see, the thing is, I was thinking of myself in a gender, I suppose a non-cisgender. I guess that's the only way of saying it. I've been thinking of myself in a non-cis way since I was about 17. So like I said, when I was 6 to the age of 12, I was experimenting somewhat with somewhat feminine things, and I never really considered myself very masculine, but between the ages of 13 and 17, I, for some reason, and it may have been because we moved away, I'm not really sure, but for some reason I decided to try to become more masculine, but I didn't really even do it on purpose. I just remember that like I stopped coloring my hair, I started cutting it short again, I started I stopped wearing any kind of jewelry, and yeah, but I think by around the age of 17, and it may have been 16, I started experimenting with it a little bit again, and like for example, I think my junior year of high school, I started shaving my legs, and it was and my arms, and it was for swimming, and it really was for swimming because it really does speed you up. I mean, the hair adds drag, and you practice with the drag, but then right before the um, meets, swim meets, you would shave your arms and legs and everything. I almost shaved my head. I shaved my eyebrows once, actually, and I almost shaved my head, but I guess I decided not to at the last moment because we all had caps anyway, so it didn't matter. That was for state of senior year. I always thought I was gonna shave my head for that, but I didn't. It was very short though. Unusually masculine for me, but then again, it was during high school, and back then I wasn't really experimenting with it yet. It wasn't until I left high school that I really started explicitly thinking about this. about my gender, I guess. I guess I never really thought about it that much before, and maybe it was when I started shaving my legs and arms that I started thinking about that a little bit more. When I also started feeling what I began to refer to as dysphoria, for I suppose you call it body dysphoria or body dysmorphia, but I don't really think that's the right word. I think it could be considered gender dysphoria for my beard, for my facial hair, which, it looks like it's not there, but I shave it pretty close, and I mean, you can kind of see it, the shadow and whatever, but yeah, I guess when I turned 17, I started growing facial hair. See, I don't know, I felt kind of lucky, I think, because all throughout high school, I never grew any facial hair. It was just, I thought I was never going to grow it, and I was honestly, happy about that, because for some reason, I could never imagine myself with a beard. I've never let it grow out, except for when I was lazy a couple times, but it's, I don't know. Anyway, when I was 17, I started feeling that dysphoria for my facial hair, and I mean, I guess maybe a lot of guys feel the same thing, and maybe that's why American guys shave a lot. I mean, there's a lot of subtle femininity within Western males. I mean, the high heel was originally invented for guys, and then girls took it over. And I don't know how that was developed for guys, but that's supposedly the way it was. And there's several other things that are like that. Like, supposedly the color pink used to be considered masculine and blue was feminine, and they changed it. And supposedly, forget the supposedly, but I mean, Western European, particularly males, shave their beard, and the only major group that I know of that doesn't do that anymore, or ever, was the Muslims. The Hindus might do that too, but the beard is clearly a very masculine thing, and the desire for a Western man to shave his beard and have a smooth face it's one of two things. It's either feminine or anti-masculine, but really those are kind of the same thing. Or it's an attempt at youthfulness, or it's both, because honestly, there's a parallel between femininity and youthfulness, and I suppose that can be seen in the confusion that some people get when I'm speaking in a more feminine manner, I suppose, because I don't do it in the way that a drag queen does it, or in the way that a lot of transgender people do it. And I guess maybe it's because I'm not transgender and I'm not a drag queen. But the way that I do it is perhaps too subtle for most people to notice. You may have noticed at the beginning of this video because I was a little bit more that way then, but it is subtle, and I know it's subtle. I kind of tend to hang out in the middle, I suppose. But like I wobble back and forth randomly, I guess. I don't know, it depends on what I'm talking about, maybe. But it's kind of natural, and I don't really even think about it. It just comes out that way. I mean, when I talk about it, I think about it, but that's about it. So anyway, I didn't even really get to the story. I might be skipping over something I was about to say, but I'm gonna change the subject a little bit and go back and talk about I suppose the history of my gender identity. Yeah, when I was about 20, well, okay, I'll say when I was 19 is when I really started explicitly thinking about it. I mean, before there was an implicit sort of passion for the feminine in myself, a passion to not, well, for example, look and sound and behave so masculine. But when I was about 19 is when I started explicitly thinking about it. And then when I was about 21, I suddenly thought that it was possible that I was transgender. And I thought about that for about maybe a month. I was thinking that way. And it was really like I suppose the blossoming of my feminine side. And I would say that my idol as far as femininity goes is Bjork. She's like the ultimate feminine. I don't know how else to describe it. And her music is too. Not only the lyrics, but also the sound, the music. She's incredible. She's just like this deep feminine force, which I really love about her. And she's so beautiful. She's so cute. Even in her older age, now I'm still very. And I'm not like there's some girls that I'm sexually attracted to, but Bjork is not like sexual. It's just I'm attracted to her because she's just really beautiful to me. She's very pretty and cute, I guess. And that's not, to me, it doesn't feel sexual. I wouldn't say it feels romantic either. It is physical, but it's just like, I mean, I feel I just love the way she looks. I guess that's how I could say it. And I have, ever since discovering her, felt envy, because she's just perfect. She may not think that about herself anymore because she's like 55 or something, and you can tell she's definitely aging, but honestly I think she's still beautiful. But anyway, Yeah, so after that period where I was obsessed with Bjork and I was being extremely feminine for a while and thinking I was transgender, trying to totally change myself. After that, it was only about a month long. For a couple years after that, I referred to myself as genderqueer because I realized that I'm not, I mean, in a most extreme case, I'm not interested in surgery or um, dramatic body alteration. Um, but what was I gonna say? Yeah, so I'm not interested in those things. I am interested in experimenting with clothes for sure. The problem is that I don't have any money these days, and I never have. I haven't bought clothes for myself in... God, I don't think I've ever bought clothes for myself. My parents bought me clothes, like my mom bought me clothes like 3 or 4 years ago is the last time, and I've been just wearing the same clothes ever since then. It wasn't really even that much. It was just like a couple shirts, a couple pairs of jeans or something. I've always kind of looked for the more... I don't know. Well, I've looked for the more feminine clothes in the guys section, which you can kind of find. But I don't know. I've never had the courage to shop in the girls section because that seems like it would take a lot of courage, and I'm a really shy person. But I am interested in that to an extent. I don't know. I think I would vary the clothes that I wear if I had enough money to just shop everywhere and wear whatever I find. I don't think I would wear women's clothes all the time, but I don't think I would wear men's clothes all the time. I think I would try to find like androgynous clothing because it just fits me better. Like it suits my style more. But anyway, yeah, so it was like the 2 years after when I thought I was transgender, I thought I was genderqueer. And then I started doing weed and psychedelics. And the very first time I did psychedelics, it was LSD. And the very first, within the first 15 minutes that it had kicked in, I started sort of reanalyzing myself in terms of gender and realized that I don't have a need to identify with any gender or any gender identity, any gender name, or like I don't care about the pronouns. I don't care if people call me a he or a she. I know they're going to call me a he because that's all people can see in me, but it doesn't bother me if they call me a he. And if someone called me a she, I would be in a weird sense like kind of flattered by it, but also a little bit confused because I feel like it's almost impossible for others to see the feminine side in me, but if they did, it wouldn't bother me, but I would also kind of not think it's normal. I think honestly I prefer he. I prefer people to call me he simply because that's the way it's always been, and it doesn't really bother me. I mean, it doesn't bother me what they call me. My name is Elliot, though. I mean, that's the name that I like to go by because my birth name is David, and that's my dad's name. And there's two reasons that I like to go by Elliot rather than Elliot is my middle name. There's three reasons. First reason is because my dad's name is David, and I want to have my own separate identity. I don't really support the naming of kids after yourself. I don't really like it. I think it just takes away identity in a way. It takes away uniqueness, which I value for sure. So that's the first reason. And I mean, it's just like it's awkward to have the same name as somebody else and live in the same house as them, which was my childhood. All the time, like, we couldn't tell who was being called, me or my dad. They say the name David, and when I was like 12 years old, I asked my mom if she would call me Elliot, and she did it for like a week, but my dad made her stop, I think. And then when I became about 21, I think, or maybe it was only about 20, around that time when I was obsessed with Bjork and everything, what was I gonna say? Oh, that's when I realized my middle name is just perfect for me, because Elliot is both a boy's name and a girl's name, and that's the second reason, because Elliot is it's like an androgynous name. Sometimes I like going by L, and it's slightly rare, but sometimes I like going by Ellie. I think I like L the best, but Elliot is still good. I still like Elliot. So that's the second reason, is because it's androgynous name, which is so lucky, so great for me. And then because it's my middle name. The third reason is because I like to have balance. And see, the thing is, my first and last name both come from my dad, and that is unbalanced. So, and my middle name comes from my mom. At least it comes from her idea. She gave me my middle name. My dad gave me my first and my last name. So my idea was, in order to balance it out, I chose the middle name instead of the first and last name. And honestly, it may sound horrible. It's not supposed to be at all, but I like to go by just Elliot. Not with my last name, not with my first name, just Elliot. Just one name. And that's what I like to go by. I mean, I also go by D.S. Eliot, which is like my art name. It's like my artist moniker.